PSG chief drops major Bradley Barcola transfer bombshell. Andoni Iraola receives a new Liverpool transfer priority. Rio Ngumoha and Trey Nyoni create a huge transfer advantage. Ronald Araujo trains with his new teammates. Jurgen Klopp's transfer warning appears to be proven right. Let's jump into the details. PSG chief drops transfer bombshell on Liverpool target Bradley Barcola. Liverpool are still keen to sign Bradley Barcola, and although Paris Saint-Germain's price tag is causing an issue, the French giants are officially open to selling him. Paris Saint-Germain chairman Nasser Al-Khelaifi has refused to rule out selling Bradley Barcola in a boost to Liverpool's chances of signing him. Barcola, 23, remains the Reds' top target in the final knockings of the summer transfer window. But negotiations have been at an impasse as PSG look to bank the maximum fee for the winger, who they value at an eye-watering £145 million amid from Arsenal. 2. Barcola was an unused substitute as Luis Enrique's side beat Aston Villa 2-1 to win the UEFA Super Cup in Salzburg on Wednesday, having only returned to training following the World Cup earlier this week. Post-match, Al-Khelaifi was asked about the France international's future and couldn't give a definitive answer. "We're working calmly. We don't talk too much," Al-Khelaifi told Canal+. "I can't say whether he will leave or not. Today, he is a PSG player. We'll see." The chairman's comments came after Enrique kept tight-lipped before the match. "I don't know and I don't want to speak about any player individually," the PSG boss stated. "Because it's always dangerous when you are asking something positive or negative about a player. I stay focused on my team." While the victory saw Barcola collect a fourth European medal in just over 3 years at PSG, the goals were scored by 2 players ahead of him in the pecking order. Kvaratskhelia gave the Champions League holders an early lead before Villa equalized prior to halftime through Brian Madjo's strike. Desire Du then restored PSG's advantage in the second half. Liverpool manager Andoni Iraola also hasn't spoken about Barcola, although his desire to sign a wide forward is no secret. "We definitely need to sign a winger," Iraola stated last month. "But there are other situations where we will have to analyze what the market gives you, what is the cost, how we also see the players we have. We have some tricky positions where we have injured players that we trust, but it is still not the ideal situation, so it will depend on a lot of things." Liverpool news. Andoni Iraola set to be handed new transfer priority as double update emerges. Liverpool's stuttering summer transfer window could about to become even more complicated. Liverpool could be facing another transfer headache this summer. The window slams shut on September 1st and the Reds are still scrambling to get a mega-money deal over the line for PSG winger Bradley Barcola. Andoni Iraola's priority has been bolstering Liverpool's attack, namely securing a replacement for Mohamed Salah and supplementing their forward line as a whole. However, the Reds are now braced for interest in 2 of their own midfielders. The updates mean Liverpool's Basque head coach may now have to pivot his attentions to strengthening his engine room. This would no doubt be a monumental task given that the Reds' hierarchy are still focusing their energies on the last third of the pitch. Alexis Mac Allister interest. Liverpool are braced for interest in Alexis Mac Allister this summer. Galatasaray have lodged their interest in recruiting the 27-year-old, according to reports in Turkey. That interest has so far been declared via intermediaries to determine a price and the Argentine's wage demands, according to Yeni Aso. However, that's not all. According to TalkSport, Manchester City have also shortlisted the World Cup winner as they look to replace Rodri, who could be on his way to Barcelona this summer. However, the report stresses that there's been no contact or developments on any deal to take the midfielder to Manchester. Mac Allister has been a regular in the Reds' midfield since his arrival from Brighton in 2023. However, he has now entered the final 2 years of his Anfield contract and suffered a dip in form last season, which saw him touted for an exit this summer. Should he leave, Iraola would have to refocus his energies on replacing the star, with the Reds currently relying on Mac Allister, Ryan Gravenberch and Dominic Szoboszlai as 3 of his senior midfielders. Harvey Elliott, Trey Nyoni, Wataru Endo, and Stefan Bajcetic are also options, but all except Nyoni have also been linked with an exit this summer. Curtis Jones latest. Sky Italia are also reporting that Curtis Jones is close to joining Inter Milan. Inter have moved closer to offloading midfielder Davide Fratesi to Lazio on loan, with the Rome club reportedly having reached a verbal agreement with the player, according to Fabrizio Romano. The journalist says an £850,000 loan fee, with a £11 million option to buy, is in place, before formal steps are to follow. Once that deal is done, it's believed Inter will press ahead with a move for Jones. Inter have registered a strong interest in the midfielder and are willing to pay £30 million for the 25-year-old, who is in the final year of his contract at Anfield. It's believed the Reds are looking for around £35 million for the player. Jones' absence against Monaco in a pre-season friendly on Sunday raised eyebrows, but Iraola was keen to stress that it was due to a minor injury issue rather than transfer speculation. He said, "Curtis has trained every day, but yesterday, Saturday, he finished with some issues in the hip, but nothing big. It didn't make any sense to risk him." Rio Ngumoha and Trey Nyoni can unlock huge Liverpool transfer advantage. Rio Ngumoha and Trey Nyoni can unlock a huge Liverpool transfer advantage because of the homegrown rules, which will play a role in signings this summer and beyond. With Liverpool having signed Ronald Araujo and Andoni Iraola still in need of at least one more attacker, and ideally two, this summer, there's been much discussion about homegrown quotas this week. In short, if Liverpool signs another non-homegrown player over the age of 21, for them to be included in the club's Premier League squad, someone else would have to drop out. Calvin Ramsey, who is currently included in the number, would be the obvious player to be removed from the list. Anyone 21 and under does not have to be registered, though that is not the case in Europe, where the rules are different. Until Giovanni Leoni got injured last year, for example, Federico Chiesa looked set to miss out in the Champions League because the young centre-back was selected ahead of him. For players like Ifeanyi Nduku, who don't qualify for a work permit, it is possible for Premier League and Championship clubs to have up to 4 so-called elite significant contribution escape places made available, but teams are not entitled to all 4 spots automatically. In order to get all 4, 35% of their minutes the previous year must have been played by homegrown players. The more you drop below that percentage, the fewer places you get, hence Liverpool only getting 1 spot this term, which has already been taken by 18-year-old Mortala Ndiaye after he arrived in January. Over the next few months, while both Ngumoha and Nyoni will be managed carefully given their young age, their roles should grow. It remains to be seen whether or not Harvey Elliott and Curtis Jones stay, but they could help too. The more minutes they play, the higher the percentage will be next time the equation is calculated. Looking to the longer term, Liverpool can help its case when it comes to the homegrown rules in other ways too, because if players represent their team for 3 successive seasons before the age of 21, they qualify as well. Stefan Bajcetic, despite not being from the UK, falls into that category after he came in from Celta Vigo in 2021. Ngumoha and Nyoni will do too when they are old enough. In the future, Leoni came in early enough from Parma to have 3 years before his 21st birthday, and Ibrahim Bey of PSG, who is being considered as a transfer option, is still only 18, so he could replicate that, while not needing to be registered in this season's Premier League squad because he is under 21. In building a squad, there are plenty of considerations that need to be assessed and lots of moving parts. Next summer, the likes of Wataru Endo and Kostas Tsimikas, who are not homegrown, are likely to move on when their contracts expire. Luke Chambers, for instance, who would be homegrown, might be able to step up at left-back. But it is also why any suggestions that Liverpool should just sign anyone to bolster its roster and add depth in key areas are nonsense. Adding multiple non-homegrown players would have a knock-on impact in terms of who could be named in Premier League and Champions League squads once the new campaign kicks off. And, crucially, adding a player for a short period is essentially impossible, aside from a loan, like Araujo. If a player is given a 3 or 4 year contract, for instance, they are permitted to stay for the entirety if they wish. Chiesa, for example, though he is unlikely to play much and has only started 2 Premier League games in 2 years at Anfield so far, has made clear that he wants to fight for his place under new head coach Iraola. He could take up a non-homegrown place in the meantime. Once a player is on a team's books, moving them on is not necessarily simple. And it all factors into who is targeted and at what point certain deals are most appealing. Liverpool get double injury boost as Ronald Araujo trains with new teammates for first time. Jeremy Jacquet, Ronald Araujo, and Curtis Jones all take part in Liverpool's training session on Wednesday. Jeremy Jacquet has returned to Liverpool training ahead of a potential first outing of the pre-season schedule this weekend. And the Reds are also expected to have Curtis Jones back in contention after recovering from a hip problem. The Reds face Italian side Como in back-to-back friendlies on Sunday, and Jacquet is staking a claim to play some part, having not featured so far this summer. The Frenchman was cleared for a return when he joined the club at the start of last month, having had season-ending shoulder surgery in February, but the £60 million defender has been hampered by an unspecified issue since. As a result, Jacquet played no part in the club's preseason tour of the United States but is now on course to make his unofficial debut against Como. Young Diamond wasn't right for Liverpool, and Jurgen Klopp transfer warning proves why. Trent Alexander-Arnold sparks backlash over footage with Real Madrid fans. He's not happy. It's unclear at this stage, however, if the 21-year-old will feature in the behind-closed-doors game earlier in the day or take part in the ticketed Anfield fixture, which kicks off at 6 p.m. News signing Ronald Araujo also took part in his first session with his colleagues since his loan move from Barcelona was confirmed on Monday. Liverpool have the option to make the deal permanent for £47 million next year and are paying all of the Uruguayan international's wages while he is on Merseyside. Jones, who remains a transfer target for Inter, was also back in action, having sat out the weekend's 3-2 loss to Monaco with a minor hip complaint. Alexis Mac Allister, who only returned to club duty at the start of the week after his World Cup exploits with runners-up Argentina, was able to feature, as was Victor Munoz, who got his first taste of Anfield in the defeat to Monaco. The Reds will wrap up their summer schedule with the 2 games against Cesc Fabregas's Serie A side on Sunday. The first friendly begins at 11:30 a.m. and is available on the club's official television station. Young Diamond wasn't right for Liverpool, and Jurgen Klopp transfer warning proves why. Young Diamond completed a £120 million move to Real Madrid after snubbing Liverpool earlier in the transfer window. It has been a curious couple of years for Liverpool when it comes to managing expectations, since Jurgen Klopp stepped down as manager in the summer of 2024. After a trophy-laden 9 years under the German, many anticipated a drop-off following his departure, having seen similar struggles at Manchester United and Arsenal post Sir Alex Ferguson and Arsene Wenger. With Arne Slot named as Klopp's successor, the Reds fanbase could be forgiven for expecting a transitional campaign in 2023-24. Instead, they won the Premier League at a canter. Consequently, expectations were sky-high in the summer of 2025 and only enhanced by a £450 million spending spree from the reigning champions as Liverpool twice broke their transfer record. But rather than being stronger than ever, the Reds badly floundered as they finished 5th in the table. Ronald Araujo can quieten growing Liverpool leadership debate after Reds transfer. Liverpool get double injury boost as Ronald Araujo trains with new teammates for first time. Limping across the finish line after a season that went from bad to worse on the pitch, they narrowly secured Champions League qualification on the final day of the season. But that was only because England were granted one of the 2 European performance spots awarded to the 2 associations with the highest UEFA coefficient points. With Slot losing his job as a result of such struggles, there is another new man in the Anfield dugout in Andoni Iraola. And, understandably, This time another transitional campaign is expected. Having won 2 and lost 2 of their preseason friendlies so far, throwing away 2-goal leads in both defeats, Iraola's Reds are very much an early work in progress. The Spaniard is already without Hugo Ekitike, Connor Bradley and Giovanni Leone to long-term injury, while Liverpool waved off Mohamed Salah, Andy Robertson, and Ibrahima Konate on free transfers earlier this summer. The Reds have at least signed Jeremy Jacquet and Ronald Araujo to bolster their defensive options and brought in Victor Munoz from Osasuna. But it is clear that more recruitment is required to strengthen Iraola's squad. Enhancing Liverpool's attack remains the priority, with the Reds remaining in talks with Paris Saint-Germain over a move for Bradley Barcola. In a dream transfer window, the France international would not only sign but also not be the only new addition at Anfield in the forthcoming weeks. Liverpool have already had to concede defeat on at least one transfer target though, after Yang Diamond signed for Real Madrid in a deal worth up to £120 million earlier this month. The Reds had seemingly led the chase for the Ivorian earlier this summer and were willing to pay £86 million to land his signature. Such a fee ultimately fell short of RB Leipzig's demands. But before Liverpool could return with an improved offer, it emerged that Diamond had decided he favoured a move to Paris Saint-Germain over Anfield. The Athletic reported that he came to such a decision because it was felt that the Reds would be in transition over the coming season, and he instead wanted to help PSG try and win a 3rd straight Champions League title and even challenge for the Ballon d'Or. PSG ultimately withdrew from the race to sign Diamond at the end of July following Real Madrid's own emergence, having been reluctant to meet the forward's salary demands and RB Leipzig's asking price. By then, Liverpool were long out of the conversation and switched their attention elsewhere as the Reds instead stepped up their interest in Barcola. Having held preliminary talks with the France international's representatives, they were given encouraging signs from the players' camp that he was open to a move to Anfield. And that is despite the possibility of a transitional campaign looming. It is perhaps at this point worth reminding ourselves of one of Klopp's most memorable quotes from his early time in charge of Liverpool, as the Reds faced up to the likely possibility of missing out on Champions League football. If I would speak to a player now and he would tell me, if you were playing in the Champions League next year I would be really interested, I would put the phone down from my side, he said in April 2016. I am not interested. I always tell players if when you are 35 or 36 and look back on your career and you think about the 1 year when you didn't play Champions League, then you are really a poor boy. There are so many things you can do and reach if you go together with the team. You can qualify for the Champions League, play Champions League, maybe win it or whatever. It is a much more satisfying thing than all the rest. That is what I would say. It is pushing the train, not jumping on the running train. That is what we need here. If somebody says, no, you don't play Champions League next year, then goodbye and thank you. Have fun next year wherever you will be. We will find players or we have players already that will go our way. That is not my way. That is the normal way for a club not playing in the Champions League. Pushing the train rather than jumping on the running train was a belief he would repeat more than once in the forthcoming years as Klopp's Liverpool side went on to win every major honour. This is a very, very special club, Klopp said ahead of his departure in the summer of 2024. I didn't make them believe. I reminded them that it helps when you believe. That's what I think. Everybody was ready to push the train, and that's what we did for 8.5 years. That attitude is something the Reds now need to rediscover. They are not starting from as far back as when the German first took over, but it is hard to decipher where exactly they fall in the Premier League pecking order as things stand. Defending champions Arsenal are rightful title favourites, but there has been so much change around the majority of the English top flight, with fellow Big Six clubs Liverpool, Chelsea, Man City, Manchester United and Tottenham Hotspur all boasting new permanent head coaches. Predictions for the campaign ahead are starting to come in, with the Reds not even being tipped for a top 4 finish in some quarters. Iraola will be keen to prove such doubters wrong. Romano reveals Liverpool signing currently off, as FSG told to pay crazy package for 2 stars. Fabrizio Romano has reported that Ibrahim Mbaye to Liverpool is currently off, while he has issued an update on Bradley Barcola. Liverpool have struggled in their pursuit of new wingers this summer, though they have brought in Victor Munoz along with Ronald Araujo and Jeremy Jacquet. Still, the Reds are crying out for at least one more top-level winger following Mohamed Salah's exit on a free transfer, and they have turned to Barcola and Mbaye after missing out on Yang Diamond. Barcola is reported to be Liverpool's top target for the left wing, but they also want to sign fellow PSG star Mbaye to play on the right. In recent weeks, Liverpool have looked in a good position to sign Barcola, who has indicated his desire to leave PSG and join the Reds. He is also reportedly unwilling to sign a contract extension beyond 2028. However, a deal is still difficult for Liverpool because PSG are reportedly demanding around £145 million for the winger, while the Reds are only willing to pay around £120 million. It remains to be seen whether there could be a compromise, but Romano has revealed in his latest YouTube video that Barcola is no longer considered untouchable at PSG. He also notes that personal terms are almost in place between Barcola and Liverpool, though PSG have declared that they want a crazy package worth €200 million for him and Mbaye. Why Ibrahim Mbaye to Liverpool is off. Romano does state that Liverpool's current plan is to sign 2 new wingers, though Cody Gakpo will impact their intentions with Tottenham Hotspur still trying to sign him. Regarding Mbaye, Romano claims his future is currently unclear because a move to Liverpool is currently off due to PSG's demands, with the young winger considered too expensive. German journalist Florian Plettenberg, meanwhile, claims Liverpool currently intends to have a different player to Mbaye on the right wing this season. He explained on X, Bradley Barcola is planned by Liverpool for the left wing. LFC remain in negotiations with Paris Saint-Germain to reach an agreement until deadline day. LFC are confident. 0 minutes against Aston Villa tonight. Should Barcola join, 17-year-old super talent Rio Ngumoha is expected to be used predominantly on the right wing. That's all for today's Liverpool transfer roundup. If you enjoyed this update, make sure to like the video, subscribe to Red Transfer Wire, and turn on notifications so you never miss the latest Liverpool transfer news and breaking updates. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, take care and you'll never walk alone.